Hello, good morning, everyone, afternoon, evening, or good night from wherever you are listening. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Debbie Janson. Debbie's taken the engineering world by storm with her research, innovations, and even selected as one of the top 50 women in engineering, which is amazing. So we're very happy to be collaborating with Debbie for Women in Engineering with the purpose to raise the profile of women in engineering as a focus, basically, putting the attention back onto the amazing career opportunities out there for girls. So without further ado and without me rabbling on, I'll let Debbie take the stand. So if you can just start by introducing yourself, Debbie, and who you are and who's Debbie.
Okay. Hi everyone. So yeah, my name's Debbie, and I am a mechanical engineer. I did mechanical engineering at the University of Bath around 20 years ago, and spent around 20 years in industry since then. I came back to Bath a few years ago to actually be a senior lecturer and do a PhD in PPE. So yeah, here we are today.
That's a lot of work, that sounds a bit. So how did you get to the point of being a senior lecturer? How did you know you wanted to get to that point? And combining that with a research engineer of ladies' shoes, it sounds like a lot of work. How do you find the time?
So yeah, I think I got to the point in industry where I've moved around quite a lot. I've spent a lot of time in kind of aerospace and defence and manufacturing, and worked on various contracts and consultancy projects and things. And one of the last projects I worked on, I had to go and put some safety footwear on to go and work in a warehouse. And I'd had a bit of a break from engineering for a couple of years. And then when I went back and put my safety footwear on, I suddenly realised that nothing had changed for me in the whole time that I've been an engineer, and that my safety footwear was really uncomfortable. It didn't really fit me properly, and actually it was men's footwear. And I was having problems with my PPE generally, but specifically my footwear, and none of the guys around me, because it was all guys, none of them seemed to be having the same issues. So I actually approached the University of Bath to do a PhD and to start looking at the issues. And at the time, I was looking at more of the material type problems that we could try to solve. And then, yeah, I just ended up being recruited as a senior lecturer because of my kind of engineering management experience. So I've got kind of two strands of working now. One is the research element where I look at PPE, and then yeah, I teach postgraduate students mainly about engineering management and everything that goes with that.
Busy.
Yeah.
It's busy. It sounds real busy. I guess we'll get into a bit more about these students a bit later on anyway.
Mhm.
But yes, so how long have you been in the industry now, did you say?
About 20 years. So yeah, I graduated in the year 2000, and yeah, worked in lots of different places, lots of different projects, all really amazing and interesting. So that's what I would say to anyone who wants to get into engineering, is there's so much variation out there, and I think that's just growing. So yeah, I've had a really amazing career now that I look back on it. But
Mhm.
I think during the course of that career, I really suffered a lot with imposter syndrome. So I was constantly telling myself that I was failing at things, but actually I was doing fine. I was just really good at self-punishing. So
I
I
feel
think I think a lot of people do suffer from that. But now, no, it's great that I now use that to teach my students about what it's really like out there and not just the academic side. So it feels like I can kind of give something back in that sense.
oh, good. What would you, within this 20 years, what would you say your most proudest achievement has been, or your most proudest moment, and why?
Um, I think yeah, it's really tricky. I mean, I've not had anything that really sticks out as like an amazingly proud moment. I mean, winning the award of being one of the top 50 women in engineering was amazing, and really unexpected as well. So it's quite humbling because some of the other women in that group are, I feel like they're doing proper work, Um,
It's
so it was a really amazing thing for me to receive that. Um, I think looking back on it, all of the times that I've dealt with the issues of being a woman in a male-dominated environment and come through that, I think I'm quite proud of those now, even though maybe I wasn't at the time. And with hindsight, we could always look at things differently. But yeah, I think just having a really nice varied career, and I've balanced my family life. I've got two young daughters as well, so I've managed that, and I've managed to keep some sort of work-life balance, although my husband might disagree with that. These things are all really important to me. So yeah, I think being true to my values as well is really good.
that's awesome. So the theme for Women in Engineering 2022 is inventor and innovators who drive change.
Mhm.
Which would you say you are, an inventor or an innovator, or both?
Oh, great question. I don't feel like I'm a particularly, I'm not an inventor. I think I would have liked to have made some changes to safety footwear when I was on that kind of looking at materials
Mhm,
route side of things, but maybe more of an innovator, but more maybe a kind of on the process side of things. And I really like to drive improvement and drive change, which I think must make my colleagues really frustrated with me because I'm always trying to change things and make things better because I'm quite an idealist. So
mhm.
that kind of feeds that side of my personality. So yeah, maybe more the innovator side, I would say. But yeah, innovator with a small I, because there are other people out there doing actual, real, great innovations.
No, no, don't downplay the work you've done. You didn't get into the top 50 for nothing. So you're just up there with everyone else. So within your career then, can you recall a wow moment, like a moment where you thought the work I'm doing as a research engineer, this is really supporting the needs of women in engineering? Was there a moment where you thought, like light bulb, this is my calling, this is what's really making a
Mhm.
difference?
Um, yeah, it's funny when you say a wow moment. I quite often think my wow moments are generally like, wow, did that guy really just behave like that or say
Mm,
that, in my in industry? So yeah, that's probably not what the answer you wanted though. So I do get some really lovely messages on LinkedIn, for example, from women just saying, you've made me feel like I belong. I don't feel like I'm on my own anymore. I now see that other women have the same problems as me, and kind of thanking me for bringing it up, and I'm trying to do something about it. So I think those times, although they might seem really small, when somebody gets in touch and says I've kind of made a difference to them, that's amazing. And that, on those days when you really can't face your work, that's what really makes it worthwhile. And the same with my job at the moment. When I get a really lovely thank you card from a student that says I've helped them through a particularly difficult time, that's really lovely, and it makes all the difference. So it's kind of those personal touches that,
mhm.
yeah, the big deal for me.
No, no, that's really cool. I bet the messages, I bet they're really reassuring, really kind of,
Yeah.
put a bit of oomph in your step and think,
Yeah, yeah.
it gives you purpose and you feel like, oh wow, this is why I'm doing things.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, it really does. Yeah. Yeah.
So we, Scamware, I guess,
Mhm.
we recognize that there's a large percentage difference within the genders in the engineering sector.
Mhm.
Although it's not great, it's something that people still need to be aware of.
Yeah.
So obviously, as a senior lecturer, you're talking to students such every day.
Mhm.
How do you drive the importance of equality to the youth, I guess, of
Yeah.
engineers in the classroom?
Yeah, I think for me it's about educating everybody. So I think in the past we've tried to, not me particularly, but generally, we've
Mhm,
tried to tell women and girls how to behave in industrial environments or in male dominated environments, and how to deal with the sort of behaviors they might experience. Whereas
mhm,
actually now, I think, particularly in my classroom, I tend to focus on everybody and what everybody should be expecting to see in the workplace. And for men, if you see certain behaviors, then you need to call that out as well as it just being on the women, because I feel like we're already overburdened as it is, and then it's the burden is on us again to actually deal with the issues.
yeah.
So I think it's for everybody to deal with. I think most men I've ever worked with recognise the importance of working in diverse teams, not just with women, but women, people of different cultures and races, and just working with people that are different to us makes, you know you've got to satisfy the whole population, especially when you're in engineering or doing product design. If you only design for men, you're designing out half your customers basically. So um, the just the breadth of innovation that can come from working in diverse teams is incredible, and that's what I try to get across in my teaching as well.
Like you say, there's so many different backgrounds and different ideas, and bringing all these people together. There's nothing but positives that can come from it, and
Yeah,
respecting one another and all that sort of stuff.
yeah.
So, how do you plan on continuing to drive change? So, we've talked about your innovations regarding the ladies' footwear. So, how do you continue to drive that? Is there any
Yeah.
upcoming sort of projects on the horizon which you can talk about, I guess. Or
Yeah. I think again, it's about education and education in the industry. So it's great to talk to companies like yourself that you actively get women's wear that is built for women and that fit and is designed around a woman. So whereas some companies maybe not so forward thinking in that sense, even though it shouldn't be forward thinking, that should women's clothes should fit women, right? So
we're in 2022 at this point.
yeah. So things that I'm working on at the moment, we've got some qualitative studies coming up, which basically means we've been interviewing lots of women about their PPE and especially their safety footwear to actually evidence the problems. Because a lot of what we've come up against is that in academia particularly, there is not that much evidence that women have these problems. So we can't influence the regulatory bodies without evidence. So everything I'm doing now is trying to gather that evidence so that we can feed that into future plans in terms of the regulations. So hopefully, yeah, in years to come, we won't be having these sorts of conversations. That's the plan, right?
Ross, hopefully, we'll never speak again.
No.
No, no, definitely not. Well, I hope we can the next time we do get to speak, it's on, better sort of conversation.
Yeah.
But perfect. No, thank you for your time. And just to round off, I put down here, do you have any advice for younger females in the generation for the industry who are considering the engineering sector? But I guess it, applies for both male and females. What
Yeah.
sort of advice would you give?
Yeah.
Would you give the
Yeah.
same advice? Would you give different advice?
I'd actually give them the same advice. I think engineering is brilliant. It served me really well in my career. I think if you want something that is broad and opens lots of doors in terms of career, there are so many opportunities you can get from having an engineering degree, which doesn't always mean you go into engineering. You might go into a completely unrelated field, but it gives you a really good grounding to go into those fields. What I would say though is you whoever you are, and probably this applies, it's quite a general piece of advice, but
Mhm.
just be yourself. Don't accept any less just because of who you are, and don't accept less than those around you who don't accept different treatment just because you're different to other people. um, I found it really hard for a long time to stand up for myself. But now I feel like every time I do stand up for myself, it's not just for me, it's for everybody that follows. So I feel like we've all got a duty to do that. So even if you can't do it for yourself, think about other people and yeah, stand up, be yourself and be authentic.
Oh, no, that's awesome. That's awesome. I've got one last question. We
Yep.
didn't talk about this one, but I took it all. So for anyone that's wanting to support and help women in the industry, can you think
Yeah.
of anything that they could do or anywhere they could go to support or, any sort of groups you could recommend, any sort of content they could read, any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, there's a fantastic book by a lady called Caroline Criado Perez called Invisible Women. I recommend everyone should read this because it's all about the disparity in data collection when we're looking between studies about men and women and even down to snow clearing and mobile phones and things. It's an amazing book. I'd advise women not to read it before bed because it makes you quite angry. But it's very academic, so it's very, and I mean that in the sense that it's all backed up with data. So it's not just kind of anecdotal stories. It's very data based. So that's a great book. There are lots of really good groups on LinkedIn and on Twitter particularly about health and safety and PPE because that's my world. But yeah, I think just search out those people. There are people out there who have these groups, and if anyone wants to get in touch with me, they're more than welcome to do that, and I can point them in the right direction.
Awesome. No, perfect. Excellent. Thank you for your time, Debbie. That was a
Thank
great
you.
conversation. And thanks for all the work you're doing as well, improving the awareness of women in the industry and what you do regarding not just your students, but in the whole sector, just to equal out the balance of equality and the issues. So, yes, thank you for your time. And yeah, thank you. Any
Thanks, Ben.
final words, or are you all good?
No, I think just thanks to yourself and companies like Scanware for actually um, being having some equality in the products you offer. I think it makes such a difference, and it helps women feel like they do actually belong in an industry where they do belong, and they should feel like that. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debbie, and take care.
Yeah, you too.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.